Beats by Dallas, make it hurt.
Hello and welcome to Project Passion, the podcast made to inspire you to follow your passion and turn it into a successful business or career. If it's your first time here and you don't already know, please feel free to go down, hit the like, hit subscribe button if you're watching this video version. If you are listening to the audio version, feel free to follow the podcast. You can leave a review if you want. It really does mean a lot to me and I do appreciate it. It helps me out a lot. This week, guys, another marketing based podcast, but it's going to be slightly different, which I'm kind of excited for. This week, I have Jose Lugo on the show. He is the founder and CEO of Innovate, and he's on today to talk about his agency and his life beforehand. So obviously, first, thank you very much for coming on today, man. I appreciate it.
Definitely. I'm so glad to be here, and I'm glad for the time, and I always listen to the podcast, so I'm looking forward to this one for sure.
Thank you, man. Well, look, yeah, do you want to just, same as always on this podcast, do you want to just let people know who you are, where you're from, what you do?
Yeah, definitely. So like you mentioned before, my name is Jose Lugo, 31 years old, living in Germany right now. Previously was active duty Army, just got out last year, started my own marketing agency, like you mentioned, Innovate Solutions. I dabbled in it while I was in the Army, in other forms. And once I got out, I decided, hey, go to college, let's get this done. And it's going great so far.
Nice. So that was your life before the digital marketing then was from college, you just aimed that you were going to go into the military, follow the family?
Yeah, so how this worked out is I actually used to be in the medical field right after high school. Worked there for a few years. The doctor I was working for was about to retire. So I decided, hey, this is a great opportunity to either A, go to another place, continue my medical career, or B, go into the military. And it was mainly, I'm sure you're well aware of this in the States, when you go to college, you have to pay for it. And I did not want to get into student loan debt. I have a little bit, but yeah, so I was like, hey, there's an option. Go to the Army, get some great training, and I can switch careers if I want. And they pay for college afterwards. They pay for the college and for housing, which is unheard of in the States.
That's nice.
So I went ahead and did that. I completely switched careers from the medical field. They kept telling me, hey, you should be a medic. You should be a medic. I'm like, is there anything else? Because I maxed out all the scores. I'm sure there's something else available. And they're like, yeah, go down the list. And I was it was all intel work. And I ended up deciding to become an interrogator for the Army, the U.S. Army. And with that came, like, they taught me Arabic for 2 years. So now I'm fluent in a third language after my Spanish, was I grew up in Puerto Rico, kind of jumping here and there. But so Puerto Rico, then Florida, I learned English, then Army, Arabic, and now here in Germany. Learning German, still not as high as I want it to be, but I'm getting there.
That's awesome.
Yeah, for sure.
That's it. So how long were you in the Army for again, sorry?
So I was active duty for 6 years.
Wow.
And I've been in the reserves, Army Reserves, which is 1 week in a month, just in case deployments are necessary for war or something, for 1 year. So 7 total.
Of course. So did you have any sort of experience with not even digital marketing, with sort of technology and with online sort of space? Was there anything you'd done with that before coming into it as an agency owner?
Yeah, so for myself, it's always been like you know how people have like a specific hobby where like they know the guitar and they're really good at it. Me growing up, I had like my hobby was to try out everything I could, like different hobbies. And I've tried all kinds, like I like surfing, fishing, boxing, hiking, but I also delved into the digital stuff. So I started getting trained with like becoming a certified ethical hacker.
Nice.
That was way back in the day before there was any kind of ethical hackers. But that's the type of stuff I was training, like Linux, how to run, like making my own codes and things of that nature. Kind of left it alone for a while, got into the Army. With interrogations, of course, it's like person-to-person type of thing. But when it comes to report writing or other facets that we did, we definitely delved into the digital world, and it was a great experience for me to bring out into the civilian world for sure.
Nice. So was that sort of a reason behind why you ended up going into the digital marketing space, or was there something else that kind of made you pull the trigger on that?
Okay, so that was one of the reasons, is the fact that I had that training in order to be able to just mess with the digital world in general. But one of my main reasons that I was actually very surprised, I had misconceptions about interrogations myself, was the actual, how do you say, the actual techniques that are used
Mhm.
to collect intelligence were completely the opposite of what I thought. And what I say is, like, I'm sure everybody's heard of the like Guantanamo Bay with torturing people
Yeah.
and all those things. So I'm going in there like, well, like they there was a court case, so they don't do this anymore. But I'm sure there's still rude or assholes. They slap you around, waterboarding, and all these things. And when I go in there and I start training, one of the first people they quote was actually a Nazi interrogator from World War II. That's Mr. Scharf, and his whole technique was kindness. And I was just like flabbergasted, like, what do you mean kindness? And the whole thing was, if you talk to people and you treat them like human beings and you listen and you, from there, you can actually build trust, and they'll actually start giving you, in my case for interrogations, intelligence.
Mhm.
And it becomes a thing where they want to talk to you. They don't even notice they're giving you the intel you want. And it was just a thing of, or how do they say, like, it's easier to track it's easier to track bees with honey than with a stick.
Yeah.
And I that just blew my mind. Like, I just could not believe, like, is this really what we do? I've
Mhm.
had colonels that used to be interrogators back in the day saying, like, you give me actually I think it was Mattis that said that. He said, give me a 6-pack of beer and a pack of cigarettes and I can make anybody talk. I'm like, what are you talking about? Like, it's always waterboarding on TV. Like, how can you say these things? Then when I dove in there after training and I started actually conducting interrogations and all that stuff, I really learned that that was actual fact. Like, being kind to people, listening, and like just forming that relationship
Mhm.
really is the key to I would say about 98% of people's like who they
Perception.
are.
Mm.
Exactly. There is that 2% or maybe a little higher that you need to be a little harsher, but you really like that physical stuff is not required. And even in those cases, you're just mimicking. Like, if they're a rude type of person, they
Yeah.
want you to be rude as well. And when you mimic that, then they talk. But even then they come down and it just comes like just being best buddies.
Yeah. Yeah. So
Exactly.
obviously what you said there, is it different as well in the fact that, when you see it in the movies, you maybe have like a squadron or whatever you would call it in the army in your side, and say you've got like 4 or 5 guys, 3 cars all pull in at the same time, jack a guy, put him in a van, drive. I assume it's not as high intensity and as exciting as the movies make it out to be in that form before you even get to the point of the interrogation and trying to get it out of them.
Yeah, so when it comes to those type of situations, so obviously, like, every major country in the world is doing covert operations.
Mhm.
What you're explaining is they just pull up, they
Smash and
take you,
grab.
and yeah, exactly. And I myself was not part of those things. I can't confirm or deny that it happens in the army right now, but what I can tell you is that um, for me, of course, an interrogator, when you interrogate, it's against their will. So whether they were arrested legally by some cop because they were caught being like conducting espionage, or if they were caught like ISIS fighters, if they were caught out there, they were shooting at us. Obviously, they're the bad guys. It's against their will.
Mhm.
Um,
So it's not
and
so much
so
like they're like a confidential informant. It's not like, they're just out and free to go and then they come to you and give you, it is more a case, it is still interrogation. It's just not aggressive and as bad as they make it out to be in the movies and Guantanamo and stuff like that.
yeah, so with interrogations, so that was like my main part of one of my main parts of my job. But I also conducted, it's called source operations, which is informants. And so with that those are the ones that come in willingly.
Mhm.
But those take much. There's a much longer process because when you're captured and interrogated, somebody sits you down on a table, they start talking to you. Like, it's obvious, like, okay, they're gonna try to get stuff out of me.
Yeah.
But when it comes to like informants and things of that nature, it's you have to form a relationship in a long time, and you have to case them, and you have to vet them, make sure that they're actually ready for orders and things of that nature. But with that, it's at the end of the day, it's the same process. It's just that one takes longer because they can always walk away.
Of course, of course. I mean, this probably isn't very related, but I'll probably never have an opportunity to ask someone again. How legit is waterboarding? Because genuinely, every time I see it in a movie, I kind of like. I think can you hold your breath? Like that's what in my head I think. Surely you would just hold your breath and exhale through your nose through the water part, or is
Yeah.
that just like me thinking I'm too good?
So the thing is that it comes like you can close your mouth or whatever you want, but it comes through your nose, and
Yeah.
that feeling that you have, like you know you're not drowning. It's just a few droplets coming in your nose, but your body immediately reacts, and you really believe it feels like you're drowning. Like
Hmm.
if they don't stop this in the next 30 seconds, I'm going to die.
Yeah. Of
So as far as that, like this is my opinion. I'm not talking for like the
course.
government or any other agency, but I think it is torture. The problem with torture is, and this is like you can Google this like CIA.gov. The problem with torture is that although it is effective in scaring people and it like into giving you intel, most of the time, a lot of these people that are caught really don't know anything that you're asking them.
Yeah.
So they'll spew out whatever you want to hear, they'll tell you. Then like a few months later, they find out these were all lies. Then if they were to get tortured again, then they'll give you some other lies, and it's just gonna go. It's a vicious cycle. It's not effective. Like, and that's why it was completely
Mhm.
stopped. Other than the fact that it's torture and it's against Geneva Conventions.
Of course, of course. So obviously, as you say, you've made the move from that. You're in the digital space now. Uh, was there a reason behind actually sort of did you leave the army to join digital marketing to start your agency, or was it a byproduct of already leaving the army and coming into what we in Britain call Civvy Street when you leave the military?
Yeah. So for me, we call it ETS, estimated time of service ending.
Mhm.
So during that time, my main focus was I'm gonna go to college, stay out here in Germany, attend college, and I need to find a job.
Mhm.
Not required. I'm doing fine. Like without the SSMA that I built, I was doing fine. But I was just thinking, hey, I have this extra free time. I have these skills. How can I make this work for me?
Mhm.
And so I've done all kinds of jobs throughout the army. Like when you're an interrogator or we call it MOSs or jobs.
Yeah.
You do literally everything. Like you become like a gunnery sergeant, whether you're a sergeant or not. You become an expert at being a janitor because everybody's cleaning, and a mechanic to some extent. Um, but with my job, I just kept thinking, well, they taught me all these communication skills that have really helped me, and we dove deep into psychology and how to, for lack of a better word, manipulate people
Mhm.
into giving us information that we need, or whatever it is that we need, information or sales or whatnot. I kept thinking about that, and I've known this other sergeant that I actually have helped a few times with, like he has his own digital marketing agency.
Cool.
We just had conversations where he brought up the word white labeling. I'm like, I don't know what the hell you're talking about. And he's like, basically like I have this client, you do work for them. You do the work for me, and I take credit. And he was just saying, hey, do you want some extra cash on the weekends? You good with Photoshop? I'll teach you some copywriting skills. And I was like, yeah, I'll help you out. Didn't think much of it. I made a couple $100. Like it was nice, but I was in the army at that time, so I didn't really need it.
Yeah.
But it was nice because I was already living in Germany, and every weekend we were partying like crazy. So $200 extra in one weekend to go to Prague the next one and blow it out was very nice.
Yeah.
Um, but so I was trying to formulate a plan, like, okay, how can I use these skills and what do I know that I can do like while I'm living in Germany, but build. My point was I didn't want to pay German taxes. It goes up
Fair.
to 42% here.
Gee.
Yeah, it gets up there. Not that they're not using it right. Like I believe Germany's like as high as it is that you can actually see it work.
Yeah,
And
it's accurate for the economy.
exactly. But I was still like, well, I still have like American citizenship. Why would I do this? So I decided, like, I kept Googling, like, how can I start a business in the States, but run it over here? And I ended up like running into some YouTube channels talking about a social media marketing agency. I was like, oh, yeah, that's right. My sergeant, like, I actually helped him out with this. And I got in contact with him and he gave me some pointers. I asked him like, how easy is this to do? He's like, well, based on what you did and the stuff I gave you and your background, you're gonna do fine. Um, And then my main thing became like, okay, like, so it's sales, like getting clients. How can I use the communication skills to shift it? Because I'm not collecting intel from people. I'm trying to get a client. Like that's the, like, I need a client.
Mm-hmm.
And but then I needed to shift that to like, okay, if I'm trying to get a client, obviously I'm trying to make business and money, but I can't have these people, although they know they're going into business with me when they go into a meeting, I can't have them thinking like this guy's main point is he just wants a client, he just wants money. Um, so I had to find a way, okay, like how can I use these skills? And it really translated so well to just basically like, I do want a client, but if I want this client, I really need to help them.
Yeah.
Like I need to make sure that they're getting their money's worth. And so I made that part of my like main motivation is I'm here to help you out. Like, and I have these skills and I have like mentors that are right there for me, and this is gonna work. And I just mainly concentrated on, depends on every person, because everybody's different, but concentrating on like, okay, I need to listen to who they are. Like, who is this person? What is their business, of course, but what are their motivations for this business? Like
Mm-hmm.
personally, whether it's intrinsic or like external, and is it things that are tangible, like I just want a big car, a big house, like traveling, or is it things like I want to be able to help my family and help the next generation set them up for success,
Mm-hmm.
and trying to use those things to let them know like, hey, like working with me is going to get you to that next level where I can get you the sales you need or the clients you need in order to get you closer to that goal that you have.
Yeah.
And so if it was somebody that would say, hey, I've been planning to move to Florida for the last, I don't know, 10 years. But my business has it's just right there, but it's not getting there. That I would use that. I would be like, hey, like if you're going to work with me, we're going to go ahead and get you the clients that you need. We're going to push you past that threshold. Your business is doing great, but you're not doing anything digitally. And this is going to get you to your goal. And
Yeah.
just using that as one person might say that's manipulation, but to me, it's just basically speaking to who they are.
It is, yeah. I mean, it's a case of like, as you say, these skills are super transferable from what you were doing to what you're doing now. And it is, I suppose, just like, you need to disarm the person. You need to, and it's not dishonesty, it's just disarming them in the case of putting them at ease, making them feel comfortable, and kind of pulling the information that you need from them and then extrapolating that into what you can do for them and what that would then return to them. And I completely understand that. And I can see how that would be such a benefit for you as well, having such a profound experience in it, being in the military, using this for your career essentially for all those them years, and now being able. I assume you've had to tweak it a little bit and kind of adjust how you would go into certain situations based off of the fact that it isn't that original job and it is obviously regular business clients you're going into.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, for certain. So there's certain things that like there's I can't even use this word. Let me find the right word to use. There's certain skills that we learned that are they're obviously classified, and so they're classified in the sense that I can't talk about them. So
Yeah.
maybe I could do some, but then there's others that are like, hey, this is classified. You can't just go around doing X, Y, Z. This is like a federal offense.
Right.
And
So there is
so
rules against using some of
exactly.
the fair. Okay.
Yeah, but I'm aware of them and I make sure I follow all the rules. And my main point is, look, I'm not trying to manipulate people here. I just want I want to show them like, hey, like you hear that saying all the time. People don't invest in businesses, they invest in people.
Exactly.
And so I want it to be that, like, I know I am that guy. How can I communicate it to this person? How can I communicate it to them? Like, hey, I am the right choice for you.
Mm-hmm.
And so I made sure that I was the person that they're investing in. And I've had examples like 2 weeks ago where I had a full conversation. We never even hit the business. Like we just kept talking and just BSing and talking about life. By the end of it, she just told me like, I really want to work with you. So like, I really want to start in 2 weeks. Like, what do we need to make it happen? And I told her like, well, this is great, but can I at least tell you what I can offer for you? Because and she was like, you give me the great vibe. Like this, you're the type of person I want to work with. But yes, show me. And I was like, oh, I understand what you're saying, and I'm so happy, but I really want to show you what
I
I
need to,
can do
yeah,
for you. Exactly. Because I don't want you to just throw money at me because you like me. Like, let me work for you as well.
nice.
But yeah, it's definitely worked out great. Like you said, I've tweaked it. Can do certain things. I don't want to anyways. They're illegal, but it's fine. It's not necessary.
Nice. And I mean, I suppose it is actually probably somewhat a benefit to the clients that you work with as well, because you can obviously, I assume, apply these same skills to breaking down profiles of audiences and how you're going to target for that brand. And I think that is also a very good value point and a good selling point for yourself that, again, that experience, and you can put that forward into benefiting their company. And as you said, it's about connecting with the person, finding out what's their goal, what's their ambition, what drives them, and then just being able to facilitate that through your service and through your passion and your skill set that you currently have.
Yeah, certainly. So like with that, like targeting the audience, the correct audience. Like I used to build like or help build targeting packets for specific people we needed to talk to,
Mm-hmm.
a dossier, if you will. Now I use the same skills, same kind of questioning, like from my clients, and I'm able to. It's pretty quickly to figure out like, okay, this is your target audience, and sometimes they know, they're aware of it. But I've had a couple where they're like, I really didn't know I could get this detailed. I had no idea that this was my audience. I'm like,
Yeah.
well, you answer the questions for me yourself. Like I didn't make this up. And they're like, yeah, it is mostly females in their 30s that are going through a transitional phase in their life, and they live in a certain area. And they're like, I never thought of that. I'm like, that's why I'm here.
So, do you have a specific niche? Are you niched into a certain niche or one or two, or are you just at the minute still spread across sort of multiple?
So I've spread it right now across multiple.
Hmm.
I'm trying to get a feel for the right ones for myself, but it seems like I'm leaning, at least with the ones I'm working with, more towards like health as the health department of it
Okay.
or industry. And what I mean by that is like right now, as of this point, it's like dental offices or how do you say that? Like Reiki. Do you know what that is? I don't even know if I'm pronouncing it correctly. I'll probably say it wrong. It's basically like mental, spiritual, and
Oh,
emotional
yeah.
coaching, things of that nature. Yoga
Nice.
realm type of thing.
That's awesome, man.
And yeah, with that, that's what I'm leaning towards. I'm not closing myself off yet. The one that I really have stayed away from, anyways, I want to learn about it, but I stay away from is the food industry, like restaurants and things of that nature.
Yeah.
Um,
I mean, it's
but that's
probably
me.
smart because I mean, that was what I done before my agency was hospitality, and even me, I still avoid hospitality because when I was in hospitality, I'd done so much of the social media marketing in the places I worked that I know how just hard it can be, especially in the area where I live as well. Um, there's less need for those sort of adverts because people are going there anyway, first of all. And second of all, they're not extremely high ticket restaurants, they're not extremely high ticket businesses. So there's a very low margin. And it's kind of like they just deal on what they get through the door every day. And a lot of the places around here are actually very small that they don't really need any more advertising. They're actually already filling up already.
Yeah, that makes sense. With myself, like I have a couple of friends that own restaurants, and it just seems like, and this is just a personal thing. I'm going to college, and so my job, like it's almost right now becoming full time plus college, which is difficult. But I've seen the marketing that is required for them, the ones that are working, it takes a lot of effort,
Yeah.
like a lot of hours in order to meet that. And like you said, it's a tiny margin, and just to meet that for it, so it's profitable, that return on investment. I just feel like at this point, I'm like, I'm not there. That's way too much attention to detail. I feel personally like a social media marketer should be working with just that one restaurant in order for it to make sense.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
so that's not something I can do at this point, anyways. But like you said, the tiny margin. I'd rather deal with clients that it's I can definitely help them
Yeah.
much better and get them way higher return on investment.
Of course. So is this, obviously you're in Germany. Are your clients all based in Germany or your clients back in the States?
Ooh, okay. So this is a really big thing, and I'm glad you brought it up. So I'm sure you're aware of like in the States. So mainly States. I do have an Australian, but mainly in the States. I'm sure aware of the fact that like different cultures, different advertisements work.
Mhm.
The States are more geared towards an emotional type of pull that actually gets them in. Of course, some logic as well, depends on what industry, but mainly emotional. That's the culture. Here in Germany, it's extremely logical with very minimal emotional pull. Yeah, it's like, what can this do for me?
Very
And
German.
like, yes, and I have no problem living here. And when I see advertisements, I'm just like, they don't do anything for me because that's not how I think.
Yeah.
As much as I want to say, hey, I'm so logical, I like this emotional things don't work on me. That's complete BS because when I see a nice car that I've been wanting, I'm planning on getting, and I just see how it looks and it's just driving, I'm like, holy shit, that makes me feel amazing. Even though I'm like, well, it's a Tesla, I want it because I can save money on gas. It's a better technology. I don't think that. I just think, man, I just want to see myself sitting on that. So because of that, I've focused on American culture, and that's the one that's been working for me better. I'm able to better produce. And I've talked to a few people that are from Germany, and I'm just not there yet when it comes to giving, like, how can I actually convince people through logic, and not just logic because I can do that. Obviously, I've done it in the military, but in German as well. My German is not there yet, so American, Australian, which is kind of mixed into their own thing, but they're close enough.
They're close enough.
Yeah.
Nice. So another thing I wanted to really ask you, because I think it'd be really beneficial, I know I said this to you at the start as well, is if you have any tips or just helpful little directionals, hints for other service people from any country. It's going to be predominantly the same, coming out of the services, maybe they've been there for 5-10 years and they don't know what to be getting into now. Maybe the skills they had, whatever their job role was, aren't transferable and they're trying to work on something new. Would you have any advice for those people and to sort of direct them in the right way?
Yeah, certainly. So I will say for at least all the NATO partner countries, you're talking about veterans, correct?
Yes,
Just to
sir.
make sure. Yeah. So most of the NATO country partners, and I'm talking about like the major France, Australia, even though they're not NATO, but they're one of our partners. UK, Netherlands, all those countries, they all have to a certain extent services when you're entering the end of your career. Well, they help you build resumes and trying to transfer those valuable skills that you gain through the military into the civilian
Uh,
world.
That's awesome.
So I would make sure that they contact the right people. I know for the United States Army or all military, we don't have a choice whether we want to get these services or not. Like, you're going, we need to see the signature from the boss out there. If not, you're not leaving.
Yeah.
But maybe others, I'm not sure if they force them, but seek those out. They're out there and they will help you there because they're civilians as well, and they transfer their own skills in order to help other veterans.
Yeah.
And it's really, and it's not just that, but like the fact that you were in the military, having that discipline, like I myself, I don't like to I don't like to say that I'm disciplined, although I like comparing to others, I'm extremely disciplined. Because I focused on work hard, leave work alone on the weekends. I'm gonna go party, enjoy life, what I want to do, or travel.
Yeah.
But when I talk to other professionals, like when I looked into applying for the jobs, just certain things that I list where they're like, you really did that, like you were that disciplined to do X, Y, Z, and I'm like, I'm thinking like, yes, isn't this normal? And they're like, no, like of course not. Use that. Like, you have that discipline. As much as you don't want to call yourself the discipline, or you may drink on the weekends, you have that discipline that during the week you held up. You showed up in formation. You were able to stand for 30 minutes without moving. You were able to follow orders, even though you didn't agree with them. You followed them anyways, and you complained the whole way. But did you complete the mission? Yes, you did. And so, when you're going to the civilian world, a lot of people are not like that. When somebody gets a order for doing a certain job, they don't, it's not an automatic thing like whether I agree or not, let's go. It's like some people, I've seen it myself, they'll argue or they just do something completely different. They don't have that instilled in them.
Mm-hmm.
That can be a benefit. It's not always a benefit. If you have a boss, that is a benefit. If you're trying to be your own boss, then you yourself have to formulate that for your employees, and
Yeah.
it's 100% transferable.
That's awesome. So obviously we've talked about all these skills that were transferable, how you were able to do it. Was there any barriers to entry for you? Did you find there was any sort of speed bumps or sort of hiccups that you had to try and maneuver yourself around to get into this space?
Yes. So one thing that it's so it was a mistake that I've actually read about it and heard videos about it, but I still made it anyways. And I sometimes you say, you know, you live and you learn, but I think sometimes you can learn and then live. I just
Yeah.
didn't do it. But it's like when you have clients and you have them set up for an appointment. My assumption is we have an appointment. You're gonna show up. Like I don't need to remind you. I'm just
Mhm.
gonna. Maybe it's also because I'm living in Germany. But it definitely alarmed me. Like if they tell us 2 weeks ago, like, hey, you gotta show up at 5:30 in the morning on Wednesday, 2 weeks from now.
You're
You
there.
show up. Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, people are not like that. They do
Mhm.
forget. They never had to be so strict, even if they're CEO of a business. So you have to make sure you remind them. So have a set schedule where you send them immediately the link, and then a certain amount of time before it, like I do 24 hours before. This worked the
Mhm.
best.
Yeah.
And I've seen through numbers that it's increased my like them showing up on time by I think it was like 60 something percent. So it like now that I do that, it's way lower than what it was
Yeah.
happening before.
So you mentioned white labeling before. Do you still white label, or was that just initially before you'd even started your own agency?
Yeah, so I did it a few times for somebody that I knew personally and they just wanted to give me extra cash. I myself right now I'm at a place where it's kind of becoming a lot of work, which I do like to work, but I don't live to work. I work to live, and that's my own standards. And so I've looked into other agencies that's what they do. They white label. I'm still feeling things out. I'm trying to figure out which one's best, seeing their portfolios and things of that nature. But uh, but yeah, right now I've talked to a few, but I haven't hired anybody to do white labeling yet.
So what is your outreach strategy then? Do you have a purpose-built funnel that you use to bring organic leads into your agency, or is it all just outreach on your part?
Okay, so for me it's all outreach. Like I've seen that it's more like I've had some success with having an organic like I have a Facebook page, and I've had some success with it, but I've noticed that I have way more success when I'm doing outreach myself. So that comes with email marketing, DMing people, cold calls, man. Like I hate them, but I love them. Like they work, but man, sometimes those people are rude. Like,
Yeah.
but that those are the main things that have really worked for me. And just joining groups where everybody's a business. They're looking for clients that because they sell, their retail, whatever it is. But those businesses are my clients.
Mhm.
And so although outreach works like direct, like, hey, this is what I do, I can help you out. I've seen that it's giving is getting.
Yeah.
And I've seen myself when I'm doing outreach, my point is I'm gonna give you something that's useful. Like I'm not gonna charge you for it.
Mhm.
Here, use it free of charge. Like I know what I'm doing. And that I've seen that must have been the most successful where like I give them a few tips, and some people might say like, "What are you doing? You can be making money. Like if you charge them." I'm like, "No, just wait." And they ended up coming to me and they're like, "Hey, it's kind of working. I can't really get it right. Can you help me
Yeah.
out more? Maybe we can make a partnership." And that's how it's worked really well.
100%, man. I will 100% back you on that and reiterate that. And we actually discussed this for anyone that's listening and you listened to last week's podcast. Me and Eric discussed this, and I'd said the exact same thing as you. In my outreach strategy, I go for value. So even when I go to meetings, I will literally have a presentation that tells them step by step what I'm going to do. Like I have every screenshot of how I'm going to build the ad campaign. And then you get clients and they go, but like, you've just showed me it all. Like, are you not afraid I'm going to go do this? And I go, be my guest. I'm like, if you want to, I'm like, take what I've told you today, go give it a go. And if it doesn't work out, come back to me. And usually they go, do you know what? It's all right. Like, it's just fine. Then, and in my head, I just put that down to being, if you give someone, I basically overvalue it. I kind of put it as, look, it's going to be this, it's this, and we can do all these amazing things for you. But at the same time, they look at it and go, yeah, that's all amazing, but fuck, that looks hard. Because it is in some respect, it is
Yeah,
it is
yeah, it
quite hard
is.
what we do. It's not, you can't just pick it up in a day. And I think people really appreciate that more when they see that you go to all the effort to say, here, this is black and white, everything that I'm going to do for you. And this is how it's going to benefit you. And if you wanted to try it yourself, you could. And then when they think about it, they go, you know what, fuck it, just how much is it? And we'll just do it this way. Because obviously, if you can explain it to me as well as you just did to make me think that I might be able to do it, well then sure as shit, you're obviously good at it. You know what I mean?
Exactly.
And I've had fantastic results just using that approach of going, here it is, very simply what I'm going to do for you. And this is what you're going to get out of it. Whereas Eric actually completely went against that. He completely contradicted the point, and he just said he didn't do any. So his approach is just like no value at all. Just basically, this is the service and case studies and that. I think he elaborated on a bit more, but just he doesn't go with like the jab, 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 right hook, the Gary V. Just straight in there.
Yeah, okay, so for me personally, like when in the beginning of stages of thinking about it, that was one of my main concerns was if this is one of the things that is said that it works best, like does it really work best, or is this just things that people are saying to, I don't know, to guide you in the wrong direction? I didn't know as far as that, but I kept thinking back to things that I used to do in the military where I saw that trend of giving is getting. Like if you go ahead and show this, like, hey, this is how you can do this, and they're like, well, aren't you supposed to do that for me? Like, why are you showing me? I can do it now. I'm like, well, I mean, you can, and I'm not saying you're gonna fail. I'm just saying like I am the expert in this area. Like this is my job, and I saw that trend, and I said, okay, I'm gonna put it on, and I seen it where I gave them the steps. They tried, but they're like, hey, I'm running a business. I don't have time for this. And I just basically told them, okay, hire an employee. I'm not your employee. We're collaborating. But if you just think about it, the charges that I'm charging are basically for a part-time job or like close to minimum wage for a month.
Yeah.
That if you think about it that way, then they're like, okay, that makes complete sense. That's going to be your focus. And I told them like, I'm not working 40 hours for you, but you're getting quality work that's worth way more than that. And when I explain it to them like that, they're like, why didn't I think about it that way? And I'm like, that's what I'm saying.
That's always the argument, I think, when especially with people that are a bit more tight with their money, or even, you know, business might just maybe isn't in a great situation at that point and they're thinking about it more, and they kind of think of it and go, well, if it's that amount just for you, how many hours you spend on it? And then you have to try and make that argument with, well, it's not really based on how many hours we do, it's based on the value that's provided to your business. And then you have to have the argument of, okay, they want to triple their ad spend, and you kind of have to explain to them now, you know, and even when you mention it in the first meeting, even when you mention it before you even get started, when you have to kind of come back to that and go, okay, well, you know, if you want to triple your ad spend, that's a lot more work here. So there's like a scale we have to go up here. I mean, if you want to triple your ad spend, I'm not going to triple your service charge. That's ludicrous. But there has to be a bit of give and take on it here as well. Especially if you want to triple your ad spend, you're going to make a shit ton more money from it. But I'm going to have to do a shit ton more work as well to make sure them ads are functioning, they're tracking, the analytics are adding up correctly, we're swapping the copy, swapping the creative, and there's a lot of work to do. And I think sometimes business owners don't get it. Sometimes business owners get it completely, hands down.
Yeah, and I've seen that. I used to think that when you're explaining those things to business owners, I thought perhaps I'm not doing a good job at explaining it, but it really comes down to their willingness to make that jump in understanding. Like,
Yeah.
hey, expertise is a thing, because sometimes they get stuck on it's not about expertise, it's how much working for me. And no matter, they know it themselves because they make much more money and they're the business owner and they make way more than their employees. And then you have to say like, well, why do you get paid more? And they'll tell you because I'm the expert. I'm like, that's what I'm saying. Exactly. And so they get stuck on that, and some people are not willing to. And if that's the case, then that's a client that you just don't want to work with. It's okay.
Yeah.
Go to the next one. You got to find the right one. But I found that it's not like, yes, we should explain it correctly the best we can, but it's gonna depend on them whether they want to accept that fact or not.
Of course.
But eventually, they're gonna have to accept it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And so what services do you actually provide? Are you all-around SMMA, or do you have very specific services that you offer to clients?
Okay, so right now my main focus is Facebook and Instagram ads.
Yeah.
I've started dabbling a little bit with LinkedIn. That one's a little it's a little different than I'm used to because it's getting like I'm charging networking, like helping them network with the correct person for them to collaborate, not actually a client. And then I help with getting some of my clients in contact with like micro influencers in order for them to advertise things for like, hey, if you advertise for me, I'll give you a free service or free
Yeah,
products. And I've seen those have worked for myself at least pretty well. Those are the ones
nice.
that I've been focusing on.
So I assume if you're doing that, do you have to have, or do you just go search for these influencers, or do you have maybe like a catalog of them that you would repeatedly go back to and rinse, reuse?
No, so for myself, I literally just Google it. So I'll I'll give you an example. There's a lady that I'm working with. As crazy as it sounds, she sells greeting cards that are handmade.
Nice.
The drawings are actually they're pretty cool, but they're not the catch. The catch is that they look kind of innocent, like a little doll generally in the front. But when you open it, it is the raunchiest jokes you'll ever hear in your life, and people just die laughing. Well, she's in the Black Lives Matter movement to a certain extent, and so I've just used that. I'm like, okay, it's not that I support it or I'm against it. That's not my job. My job is I'm gonna get you clients, and so I
Mhm.
found exactly a micro influencer. I say micro; they have a good amount of followers, but not like millions. Um, and I literally just contact them, and I just send a picture of it. I'm like, have you seen these? By the way, I should preface, they lived in the same area where those cars started becoming famous
Right.
because of the fair she was in, the ads I was doing for her. And she's like, "Oh my God, like, yeah, I know about these. Like, which joke is inside?" And I'm like, "Well, you can find out. You can get them for free, and you can just have like a reaction video. If you could do that, we'll send them to you, and they become kind of a collector's item, like within a little cult that they
Yeah.
have now." And but yeah, it was just I googled it and I found her, sent it to her, and now she's thanks to that. Actually, she got a lot of sales through that, and I just
Nice
can't
one.
believe you can make thousands on greeting cards, but it's working.
Oh, hell yeah, man. My partner, she's a professional designer, freelancer, and it blows my mind, like that whole industry of creativity and artists. And frankly, the money that gets thrown around in the art industry is crazy, crazy. So I can 100% understand that with the cards.
Yeah, and it's like so that one's kind of out of my realm, but it worked, and she was one of my first ones. But she's the main creative when it comes to the ads. Like I of course I help, but because she's an art
Yeah.
and she's actually an English major as well. She'll help with the copywriting itself. She's like, "What do you think?" I'll tweak it a little bit, but yeah, I cannot believe like to this day, like when I see the numbers and every time I check like Facebook Business Manager, I'm just like, how the hell is like I know I'm doing good, but like it's greeting cards. I tell her all the time too. I'm completely like transparent. She'll hear this. She's like, "Are you talking shit?" I'm like, "I'm not talking shit. I'm just saying like, how are you making so much money selling greeting cards?" But it's the jokes. It's that contrast of cute but dirty at the same time, and it
Yep.
just gets people up there. It's up in Colorado, and she's doing great.
I mean, funny cards are always going to be relevant, aren't they? I mean, and especially when you get like the themed ones. I know one of my partner's birthdays are both in May, and that was just before them when Tiger King came out on Netflix, and everyone was getting Tiger King birthday cards. I mean, like I got one for my girlfriend, I got one for my sister, I got like 2 Tiger King funny cards. Like they were just the rage for like 3 months. Everyone was doing Tiger King everything, and it would
Yeah, that
have
makes sense.
sold crazy much.
Yeah, and I've actually noticed too that it's like how that was trending at that time. It was trending and it just kept selling. And she's really good at making those jokes like relevant to the current times of what's
Yeah.
going on, like right at this very moment. And yeah, she's doing great. I'm really happy for her. I'm happy we're working together, getting close to like another stage of her plan with marketing, with like her becoming a figurehead of the cards itself. But we're still working on that,
Building the
tweaking it, making
structure
sure it's
up.
correct. Yeah.
Yeah, of course. So, do you have any big plans coming up? Any projects you're going to be working on, or sort of directions you want to take your agency in the future here?
Yeah, so right now I'm working on changing. My big thing is changing the business model that I have right now. Not the model itself, but the the actual when it's registered in the states. I'm
Mhm.
trying to switch it to another type of company.
Okay.
But as far as projects itself, right now I'm kind of working on going to an army military school, and so that's kind of holding up business things. I'm keeping it steady right now, just working on more clients. But I have to do that so I can actually rank up to another level of sergeant. So that's my focus right now.
Nice, man. Well, good luck for that. I hope it goes well. Is there any final words, last little bits of advice for anyone?
Well, first, I want to appreciate everything you've done this time. And it's really good talking to you. And tips, listen to people. Don't wait. Don't just wait to talk. Like, listen, consider it, answer back, do your research, and just remember, like, know your worth and give that worth to others as well. That's what I would say.
Awesome, man. Thank you very much for that. And thank you for coming on the podcast today. I know I appreciate it. It was super interesting for me. And knowing the listeners, I know they're going to really enjoy this episode as well.
All right, man. I really appreciate it. It's good talking to you, man. And I just want to say one last thing. I had no problems with the accent. I know it's Americans have
we
trouble with
discussed that
European
before.
accents.
Yeah.
You do. I don't know if you slowed down, but I really appreciate it. It was like super smooth.
Cool. It used to be a lot worse, but I've lived in like mainland Britain or mainland UK for this is my 6th year living here. So and my girlfriend's English, so it kind of tones mine down a little bit.
Okay, well, I definitely appreciate it, and it's no fault of yours. It's all me knowing this weird ebonics and weird English out in the States. So.
Hey man, I mean, you speak like what 3.5 languages at this point already, so you're already killing it.
I'm trying, man, but that German is hard.
Awesome, man. Well, appreciate it again. Guys, if you did enjoy this, please hit that like, hit subscribe. Jose, I'll drop your links in the description on screen, same as they always are, guys. Please go over, drop them a like, drop a follow, drop a couple of likes. If you have any questions regarding SMMA or anything that his agency is doing, please feel free to ask a question. If you have any questions for me, Roots, coming out of this podcast episode, get in touch, drop me a message in DM, Facebook or Instagram. I'll be sure to hit you up. If need be, I can liaise with Jose and just double check it, get back to you. And yeah, that's it, guys. As always, hit that like, hit subscribe, follow the podcast on the audio platforms, leave a review. It is appreciated. And we'll be back next week. Cheers.
Hello guys, how you doing? It's me, Jack, mate. You've just finished watching probably one of the best videos on YouTube. So why not take a moment to consider subscribing? And if you haven't already, hit the like button and turn the notification bell on. Apparently it helps. I don't know how. It was a good one though, wasn't it?